It is almost impossible to believe that Jeremiah Smith has another year of college football ahead. He's going to be the key guy, surprise, at Ohio State this year as the Buckeyes look to get back to another national championship game and win it this time like they did 2 years ago. Obviously, last year they lost in the college football playoff to eventual national champion Miami, which was a little bit of surprise to some. But Miami's defensive line and offensive line were just so dominant. So can the Buckeyes, with so many back on offense, get back to the national title game? That's what we're talking about today on the You Think You Know Sports podcast. We're going through the Big Ten. We're trying to preview every team in the country here. This is a brand new podcast. We've gotten through probably 40 teams on here. We've done the American. We've done the ACC. We're working through the Big Ten. Appreciate you finding us. You can listen to this podcast just about anywhere that you can find podcasts. This really started with a TikTok page, which has over 10,000 followers, where we do extensive breakdowns of college football, the NFL, and college basketball. So I hope you'll come check us out there on You Think You Know Sports. Any social media, that is where you find us, as well as youthinkyouKnowsports.com. Ohio State lost its last two games of last season, and that seems like a big deal until you remember it was to the two teams that played in the national championship game. They lost to Indiana in the Big Ten title game, and then they lost to Miami in the Cotton Bowl, right? So other than that, 12-0, coming off of a national championship season, beat Michigan. Ryan Day finally got over that hump at Ohio State, and yet it still felt like it was a little bit of a failed season. And I only say that, not to bring it up for Buckeyes fans, I don't need any hate mail, is because expectations are that high in Columbus. I mean, even replacing the quarterback and some of the other pieces off the championship team, the expectation was to go win it again. And Ohio State certainly looked like they might do that going into the Big Ten championship game. And a lot of people thought we were going to see Indiana and Ohio State again in the actual national championship game. But obviously that did not happen. We ended up with the Canes and the Hoosiers. This Ohio State team, man, it is what everybody wants to be in college football. And some people will point to the schedule, but I'm going to get to that in a minute. They've had double-digit wins in every full season, meaning not COVID, since 2011, right? So every year but 2020 when COVID shortened the season. Ryan Day is 82-12 at Ohio State. 5 of those losses are to Michigan. He's 1-5 against Michigan. Finally got there, right? 6-5 in bowl games. Okay, so against Michigan and in bowl games hasn't been as good, but obviously has that championship under his belt from 2 years ago. Ohio State averaged 31 points per game, or just under 31 last year. 405 yards per game. Those were both top 40 in the nation. They were 51.7% converting on third downs, number 2 in the country. Then they had a team completion percentage of 76%, which is number 1 in the nation. They did not run it that great. 145 rushing yards per game. That's number 71 in the country. So let's talk about this offense. Julian Sayin is back at quarterback. Julian Sayin was unbelievable last year. Completed 77% of his passes last year. 32 touchdowns, 8 picks. 3,610 yards passing. Now, I love to break down quarterbacks in their biggest games, right? Because the Big Ten has won the last 3 titles. But Ohio State runs through a lot of the teams in the Big Ten. They just have better talent. They're an elite program nationally, obviously. So against Texas in the opener last year, Michigan, Indiana, and Miami. So we're talking about the one thing I would say is we're taking one game that was very early in the year and then 3 that were very late. But regardless, he had 6 touchdowns and 4 picks. So in the other games that they played last year, which would be, 10 other games, he had 26 touchdowns and 4 interceptions. He completed 58.9% of his passes under pressure, 7 touchdowns, 3 picks. That was the 7th best in the nation. That's a Pro Football Focus stat. And he had the 5th most touchdown passes under pressure in the country last year. You know, you usually see this dramatic change. And yes, the number went from like 77 to 58.9, but absolutely insane under pressure numbers for Sayin as far as completion percentage. When you left him in a clean pocket, he was completing better than 4 out of every 5 passes last year. You had to get pressure on this guy in order to have any chance of stopping this Ohio State offense when they went to the air. Running back Bo Jackson had almost 1,100 yards. He had the second most rushing yards in the nation last year for a freshman. But they've got to run it better. Just did not run it well enough, right? They have got to run it better. They also, I will say, gave up 10 sacks to Indiana and Miami. We're going to get to the offensive line here in a second. Jeremiah Smith. I mean, listen, you run out of superlatives to talk about a player as good as this. I mean, I think he would have been the number one pick, or at least the top 5 pick in the last 2 NFL drafts. He had 89 catches, over 1,200 yards, 12 touchdowns last year. He has over 27 receiving touchdowns in his career at Ohio State. Look, we know Carnell Tate's gone to the NFL, but this Ohio State passing game is going to be just fine. Brandon Ennis is also back at receiver. They have 4 offensive linemen back from last year's team. Under Arthur Smith, you would think that the run game is going to be very physical after all the time he spent in the NFL. Obviously, Matt Patricia being the defensive coordinator. You got some NFL guys at Ohio State coaching under Ryan Day. But I cannot wait to see what this running game looks like. It certainly seems like it is going to be even better this year with Jackson back and this offensive line. Now, defensively, they've only got 3 guys back. Kenyatta Jackson, Jermaine Matthews, and Jalen McClain are the only 3 guys who are back on Ohio State's defense from last season. This defense, and look, I don't spend a lot of time on these podcasts talking about the previous season because we're looking ahead. That's the purpose of this, is to look ahead. But this defense was absolutely insane last year. I mean, I don't think people understand how good it was or remember how good it was. They allowed 10 points per game last year. Fewest in the country. It was under 10 almost all season, okay, till the Miami game. They allowed 223 yards per game. 3.9 yards per play. Those were top 2 in the country. Opponents averaged 31% conversion rate on 3rd down and 37% on 4th down. Both of those are top 10. 69% red zone scoring allowed. That was number 2 in the country. Sack percentage was 9.35%. Number 4 in the country. And they gave up just 5.5 yards per pass. Number 3 in the country. Okay? They've got to replace 4 All-Americans from that defense. They do bring in James Smith. He's an Alabama transfer. Trey Moore is a safety coming over from Duke, expected to play key role on defense. You've got Connor Hawkins at kicker as well, if we want to get into that. That's where the next spot on my notes went. This defense is not going to be as good, I don't think, as it was last year. Listen, it's almost impossible, but they don't have to be. The offense is going to be even better with Sayin, Jeremiah Smith. I think the offense is going to be just as good, if not better. And I certainly believe that we are going to see the defense under Matt Patricia still be elite. Not as elite, because 10 points a game is almost impossible. I don't think that's going to happen. But I think they're going to be really, really good again. Now, the schedule at Ohio State. I live in the South. I've never hidden that I have grown up in SEC country. And I get tired of the conference debate and all that stuff. I get all over people who try to decide who the best conference is, because who cares? Nobody should cheer for a conference. But one thing I have heard my entire life that drives me insane is Ohio State doesn't play anybody. And listen, there are years where that certainly you could make an argument for that, right? Where the Big Ten's down, the out of conference isn't great. But this is Ohio State. I'm going to just name a couple of games on their schedule this year. They play at Texas September 12th. They play at Iowa October 3rd. They play at Indiana October 17th. They play at USC on October 31st. They play at Nebraska, which obviously the least expected of these teams would be Nebraska, but I'll mention it, November 21st. And then they host Michigan on November 28th. Now the home games, the home schedule, Ball State, Kent State, Illinois, Maryland, Northwestern, and Michigan. The other one that's big that I didn't mention was Oregon, November 7th, right? The rest of the home schedule, depending on how you feel about Michigan, outside of Michigan and Oregon, Very, very manageable, right? But the away schedule at Texas, at Iowa, at Indiana, at USC, at Nebraska, and then you've got to play Oregon after going to USC, and you got to play Michigan after going to Nebraska. I think the schedule is extremely challenging this year. I do not think it's going to be a cakewalk for this Ohio State team at all. I certainly believe Ohio State could find themselves in very difficult games. You know, Iowa's a tough place to play. Texas is going to have Arch Manning back. Very tough place to play. It's not the first game this year. It's the second game when those two teams get together. Indiana's the defending national champions. At USC, they have more returning starters than anybody in the country. And then Oregon coming to Columbus November 7th, obviously. Absolutely gigantic. So cannot wait to see how this schedule plays out. Guys, wherever you follow me, wherever you found me, I hope you'll comment. Tell me what you think about Ohio State's schedule this year. I would love to hear from you. Hope you'll hit the follow button, the subscribe button on this podcast. The next team we're going to get into, as luck would have it, is the Oregon Ducks. Cannot wait to talk about Dante Moore and everybody coming back there. So hope to see you on the next podcast. Thanks for listening.